Hello and welcome to World Talks here on TVP World with me, Ashim Kumar. As ceasefire talks between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin draw closer, questions are mounting about whether human rights will be on the agenda. Since the start of the full-scale invasion, Russia has been accused of grave violations in Ukraine, from the massacres in Bucha to the destruction of Mariupol. International investigators have documented cases of torture, mass deportations of children, and the destruction of civilian infrastructure. Will these crimes be addressed or risk being sidelined in pursuit of a ceasefire? To explore this topic, we're joined by Ivan Horodyskyy, a senior fellow at the Atlantic Council Human Rights Violations in Ukraine. Mr. Horodyskyy, welcome to TVP World and thank you for taking the time.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, so let's start with big picture analysis or review of Russia's record as it stands at the moment in Ukraine when it comes to human rights violations.
So, if we are talking about human rights violations committed by Russians in Ukraine, we are talking about thousands or even hundreds of thousands of different crimes, which were committed on the temporary occupied territories, which are currently liberated, such as north of Kiev region, Chernihiv region, and south of Kharkiv region, which are done day to day on the occupied territories which are currently under the Russian control and which are committed in the Russian Federation itself, because thousands of Ukrainians, including prisoners of war, including civilians, are in captivity and they are prosecuted in Russia with no legal basis, or even they stay in Russian jails with no indictments, with no proper hearings, with nothing. So they are just kind of hostages made by Russians. And really, with every day, you mentioned the ceasefire talks, this question whether these crimes will be investigated and prosecuted.
I want to come to that in just a second, sir. But before that, I do want to delve a little bit deeper into some of these grave violations of human rights. In particular, I'm thinking about the forced deportation of, it is estimated, 50,000 Ukrainian children to Russia. What do we know about how they've been treated?
They are, first of all, the legend which Russia explains this acts of deportation is that they are saving these children from war. But war was aggression started by Russia, and they are taken to Russian Federation. Many of them are staying for years in Russian families, and what is the most important, they indoctrinated in schools, in summer camps. They are taught about Russian versions of history, of the origins of the Ukrainian nation, Russian nation, that they are all brothers and sisters, and Russians are saving. And this is one of the most horrible crimes, because this indoctrination of children, putting them in their heads some legends, some falsified facts, and later on the main idea is to create Russians of them, to kill Ukrainian identity in these children. And this, from this point of view, this forced deportation of children can even be treated as a part of the crime of genocide.
Right, okay, so let's stay with that just for a second. Now, this was the main reason that the International Criminal Court issued an arrest warrant for Putin and others. Tell us about the basis of the warrant and who is going to enforce it.
Basis of the warrant is agreement between Ukraine and International Criminal Court, done, as far as I remember, in 2015, by which Ukraine recognized the jurisdiction of the ICC over the crimes committed on the Ukrainian territories in connection with the Russian aggression. So even 10 years ago, Ukrainian government had an understanding of the importance of cooperation with the ICC. Concerning two warrants you mentioned, it's not, it's not usual practice of the ICC to make it public, but the current prosecutor of the ICC, Karim Khan, it's doing this thing this way. So it made public that warrants for Putin and Belova, the Russian plenipotentiary for children's rights, they were issued because of the deportation of the Ukrainian children. The enforcement of these warrants, the responsibility to enforce these warrants lies on the states which are member states of the Rome Statute of the ICC, including Poland, including Great Britain, the United Kingdom, etc. But Putin systematically tries to undermine the authority and the jurisdiction of the ICC. For example, last year he made a visit to Mongolia, which is a member state of the ICC, and Mongolia refused to recognize this warrant and to enforce it. And so that's why it's a kind of strategy of small steps to undermine the authority.
But he's doing exactly the same. He's doing exactly the same by visiting the United States on Friday, isn't he?
No, because the United States are not the part of the ICC and Rome Statute. So it's a historical policy of the United States not to recognize overstate jurisdiction over their citizens.
Understood. Now, what about crimes like Bucha, which, many people who saw what happened there will never forget? I know it's only one of hundreds of such crimes. But will anyone be brought to justice for that? I mean, what about the soldiers who committed it, the commanders who ordered these massacres? What about them?
In this case, I'm always saying that we have some slightly higher chances to see those who are or who would be convicted in these crimes in The Hague. Why? Because, first of all, we don't know the exact number of warrants. So, as I said, usually they are not public. Secondly, it's much more lower-ranked people, and that's why there will be much more or less some political tensions against their arrest or so. And we can see that in 10 years, in 5 years, some of those convicted in these crimes may go, for example, to some South Asia for a vacation, and he or she will be arrested for these crimes. So this is a very low chance, but still is slightly higher than chance to see Putin in The Hague.
A very low chance, you say, which I think many people would find frustrating, having seen the suffering that the Russian military and Putin have caused. Now, I want to connect this to the meeting on Friday between Putin and Trump. Is there a risk, a danger of all of these crimes being overshadowed by the possibility of a ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine?
Good question. You see, I don't think it's a risk or danger. I think it's a reality. For new White House administration, the issue of human rights violation states it's not a priority. It's a second or third or even fourth ranked priority. And they are ready to say, okay, we are forgetting, we are not considering these issues, but our aim is to get a ceasefire on certain conditions. And secondly, we can see the last weekend's memorandum between Armenia and Azerbaijan signed in the White House and signed also by Donald Trump. There were no issues connected to the protection of minority rights, protection of any humanitarian questions were raised in this memorandum or around the situation. So for Donald Trump and its administration, the main strategy is to get ceasefire and not to consider some other issues, which for them are also human rights. I cannot say it's good or bad. Of course, for me as a human rights lawyer, it's not okay, but it's, as I said, unfortunately, it's a reality and it's a tragedy. Definitely, it's a tragedy for Ukrainians.
I think many would agree with you. Well, if the US isn't interested, is there something Ukraine can do, when peace finally comes to that country?
Ukraine is already doing a lot. We have a special unit in the office of our Prosecutor General which investigates crimes against humanity, war crimes, which tries to set documents to prove the crime of genocide committed by Russia in Ukraine. So, and this work definitely will continue. As a lawyer, I know the road to justice is long, and definitely all Ukrainians would like to see The Hague and thousands of Russian war criminals there. But we may wait for years, for decades, but I think that to a certain extent, the justice will prevail and we will see in The Hague, in Kyiv, in other places, people who are guilty in crimes committed during the Russian aggression, they will be prosecuted and punished. But of course, it's a long run, it's a long play, and Ukrainians should be ready for this and all the democratic society.
Well, I think many people would agree with you that, we should be ready for it. How likely it is, though, we shall see. Now, Putin has made it very obvious over the years that he's been in power that international treaties mean nothing to him. He signed the Minsk agreements to stop hostilities in the Donbass region in 2014 and simply, consolidated his forces for the full-scale invasion in 2022. Now, the thing is this, bearing his track record in mind, what real authority does any agreement between Putin and Trump have, even if one is signed on Friday? How do we know Putin's going to stay with it?
It's a very good question. One of my U.S. colleague lawyers, he says that if Putin was a businessman and if he broke so much deals and agreements as he had done at the international level, no other business company, no one would sign another agreement with him. But Donald Trump believes that he has this authority. That the United States administration has this authority to guarantee that in future Putin, Russia won't make an aggression again against Ukraine. I don't think that this will be stable. That any agreement, any ceasefire agreement with Russia will have 100% guarantees for years, until Putin is at power, is in Kremlin. But still, it's really don't know. It very depends on guarantees, but if it is signed in Ukrainians,
well, unfortunately, we're going to have to end it there, Ivan, but let's wait and see what stick Donald Trump carries, if he has one at all. Ivan Horodyskyy, thank you very much indeed for your analysis. Have a good evening, sir.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you. And that brings us to the end of this episode of World Talks. Don't go away, though. Lots more coming up. Goodbye.